it's like now we did some heavy recon. Go back with a vengeance.
There you go. Had you ever been there before?
Nah, that was my first time in Jamaica. It was a trip because that was the first time I ever been to a country that wasn't Europe, you know? And I'm like, okay.
You ever go to Canada?
Nah, I've never been to Canada.
Wow. Oh. Don't put it really high on your list. There's nothing wrong with it.
I don't think...
it's not like bad. But if I was going to spend money to go somewhere, that wouldn't be it.
Is it strict though? Like I heard that like if you have a fucking unpaid parking ticket, you can't get in.
Oh really?
That's what I heard, but I'm not sure. I know I've
definitely had unpaid parking tickets, and I've definitely been to Canada. So I don't know if it's that strict, but it might be like, I know I have some friends that are musicians that haven't been able to get in or out because you know, like prior arrests or like criminal records and shit like that. And I don't know beyond that, but but yeah, I wouldn't put it high on your list anyway. You could just kind of go to like.
I know Snoop Dogg couldn't go back and forth, but he had a fucking murder case. So yeah, I think like graffiti heads can't get in and out because they're like, nah, brother, you're not coming here to tear our spot up. What's up? Are we going? We rolling. How y'all doing out there? Mondays and Tuesdays at a different shop, you know? Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been tuning in, everybody that's been liking, subscribing. Shout out to the big dog Talking Schmidt, you feel me? Make sure y'all tap in with that. Lots of great episodes. The last episode was great, you know, and we're gonna keep it rolling. We are in the shop, but not break free. We in the fish tank with our guy, Jeremy Fish. And we're gonna tap in and really explore the mind of one of the dopest artists to be in America, for real. What's up, Jeremy? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for allowing me to come into the space, you know?
Hell yeah.
It'd be cool to switch it up from just being at the skate shop, but we'll be back at the skate shop, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, we met not that long ago, so it'll be cool to like actually dive into.
I knew about you before I knew you. Like I've seen you perform before I'd actually talked to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a fan before you were a fan.
Word. Same. The first I heard your name was some Adidas with the wings.
Jeremy.
Wrong Jeremy.
Yeah, I think that's Jeremy Scott or Jeremy Fox.
That's how much I don't know.
Jeremy somebody. But yeah, no, I have worked with Adidas, not on like a shoe, but just did some t-shirt graphics for them.
I'm so glad you didn't do those shoes though, because I was like,
those are horrible.
Bro, what?
No offense to the other Jeremy, those were whack. I have made a lot of shoes, and I've done stuff for Adidas, but no shoes with wings for them.
Word. Before we even get into it though, I just want to know, North Beach or Golden Boy?
Golden Boy. Although, if you were gonna say Golden Boy forever.
I'm just throwing those two.
Golden Boy is the like best old school one in the neighborhood. It was here in the 70s. I know the family that owns it. There's also Tony's. Tony from Tony's Pizza it's like one of the top 50 pizza restaurants in the world and one of the top 10 in the United States. Okay. It's like a 13-time world champion. And
where's Tony's at? It's like
directly next to my house on Union and Stockton, right in front of Washington Square Park.
Okay, bet.
And he's a good friend of mine, and I don't ever say one is better than the other. Tony's or Golden Boy, they're just two different animals. You know what I mean? It's just which one you prefer, but those are the two best in the neighborhood without question. Yeah.
And then did Francis Coppola write The Godfather on the street or something like that? Okay.
He did, I don't know if he wrote the whole thing, but he did a lot of the work at Cafe Trieste, which is the oldest espresso bar on the West Coast and like 5 doors down from here.
Okay.
And probably my personal, like my absolute favorite business in California.
Word.
It's just like so much cultural history's happened in there. Like Francis Ford Coppola worked on The Godfather. Mm-hmm. I heard George Lucas did some fucking notes for Star Wars in there. Kerouac finished On the Road in there.
And that's like the top dog. So imagine just regular like everyday people.
Yeah, well, and then still to this day, I think what I like about it, which is what I like about this part of the city so much, it's real timeless over here. Like you can go in Cafe Trieste and you don't have any idea, is it like 1940 or 2020? You know, like it just doesn't. Time kind of stops in a lot of the places on this side of town. And that particular place just has so much fucking mojo in it. I go there twice a day, every day, and have for decades. I get an Africano, which is like a short, kind of round. They serve it in a short round glass, and it's just, it's just different proportions of milk and coffee. But it's their signature drink. And a lot of it is the cup that it comes in. It's really sick too.
That is exactly what different coffees are, just different proportions of milk and coffee.
Yeah. I wish I could come up with a better description for this one.
No.
The Africano is just short, doesn't have a lot of milk in it. It's kind of more like a cortado, but it's banging, and if you ever go in there, I highly recommend it. Yeah. People that work there are all really friendly, and the family that owns it's really sweet. Like it's the oldest espresso bar on the whole West Coast. The guy opened it in like 57, I think.
Damn.
And back then, you know, San Francisco was not as integrated as it is today with, you know, people of different colors and people from different places and people with different sexual preferences. And, you know, the city was still pretty restricted back then. And the guy that owned that place made it like real early on, like a haven for everybody, like hippies, beatniks, anybody from any race, any neighborhood. And it kind of echoes in the place still to this day, even though obviously the city's become a lot more open to everything than it was back then. It's just interesting, like it sort of holds this everyone's welcome kind of energy to it when you walk in there.
Yeah, San Francisco's got a lot of history, obviously, but one of the things that stuck out to me about San Francisco was Maya Angelou came out here and like grew up going to like grade school here, and then she like, I don't know if she falsified anything, but she just told the people that she was older than she was, and she became like the first train conductor, like first woman train conductor, I'm sure like first black woman train conductor as well, but on the trolley cars.
What?
Yeah, Maya Angelou.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, for real.
I'm a big fan and friend of the Cable Car Barn, and this guy Val Lupez that runs it. I did a jacket with Derby where I like made this like kind of cable car tribute jacket, and it was during COVID, and it was the only time since the '89 earthquake that the cars were not running. You know?
Yeah.
And all those dudes were just kind of like in a bad spot. It was like, and so Janine, the lady that owns Derby, and I made these jackets and made sure that almost every driver got like a sick ass jacket.
Tight.
Kind of feel like somebody was celebrating them while they were like
for
not
real.
working.
Keep them laced up.
But I had never heard that before.
Yeah, now I got to do some research because you're the real historian. But I'm sure that's because I read her book. I read her book, and I remember the story of her. I don't know if she was a volunteering or something, but she was super persistent, and she really loved the cable cars.
I know she must have been pretty burly because there hasn't been a ton of women conductors because or little tiny conductors because it's super strenuous. You got to be kind of burly to grab that. It's like blocks that they use as brakes and like that clamp that grabs around the cable, and that's like. It's no joke to just like pull that thing up and get it to stop. So
maybe it might have been like some volunteership.
It's not to say there has, there's definitely been women that did it. There are currently some women that are conductors, but I do know that the guy that designed the cable car, I think his name was Andrew Halliday or something like that. He designed it and helped get it built and trained a bunch of dudes to drive them. But on opening day, when it was actually time to like go, nobody wanted to do it. Like none of the drivers that were trained to do it were comfortable pulling the trigger. And so the dude who designed it actually drove it for like the first however long week or something like that.
That's tight.
While the other guys got more comfortable with it. But it's pretty badass, It'd be like Henry Ford. Just like design the car and nobody would drive it. So he's like, all right, everybody, fuck it.
I wonder if he's thinking the whole time like, these motherfuckers ain't gonna know how to drive this shit. I'm gonna have to show them. Or if he thought like, all right,
the story was
I'm
told
done.
To me,
you guys take it over.
The story was told to me like they were all shitting their pants. Like everybody's just scared. But I mean, think about it. Dropping in on a big ass hill on something like that, where it's like, wait, we're only hanging on by a little fucking rope that's going under the street, and the only way we can stop are these little blocks of wood. Yeah, I think I'll pass.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about like doing historian like lectures or anything like that, or like has that ever became something that came across your mind where you just want to sit and talk about San Francisco all day?
No, I did this project last year with the History Channel where they wanted to do an NFT, which I think is dumb, but I did it because they would pay to make a little video that went with it.
Word.
And my NFT was about this cool story about the opening day at the Golden Gate Bridge. There was this dude who pushed his motorcycle out through. There was like thousands and thousands of people that showed up to walk across the bridge on opening day. And this dude fucking pushed his motorcycle through the crowd and like waited till they cut the ribbon and then fired his motorcycle up. So he was actually the first person to ever cross the bridge, and it was on a bike, not on foot. But the drawing was about that, and the NFT they made was about that. And the little movie we made with it, I made it with my friend Jeremy, and the people at History Channel freaked out. And they were like, yo, the video's better than the NFT. Like, we want to do more of these. And then I pitched them this whole thing where I do like 12 of them and have them be like about things about the city people just don't really know.
We
And I
gotta
don't mean
figure
like
out-
people that live here. I mean like
Word.
just people around the world don't know the burritos from here. And people don't always know that Thrasher's from here. And like shit like that, where I was just
Hold
gonna,
up, hold
kind of
up.
like the little story about opening day at the Golden Gate Bridge. I tell these little stories about the city to teach the rest of the world. Like there's a lot more going on here than just like fentanyl and homeless dudes. Like the city has crazy layered history and all these things that don't necessarily get celebrated in the mainstream media. But, and they were never not, like the History Channel was like, fuck yeah, they just didn't do it. It hasn't happened yet.
Okay, so before they even do it, the burrito was here?
Fuck yeah.
What?
Yeah, man.
I'm always talking to fools that are from Mexico and stuff. I'm like, yeah, like burritos. They're like, nah, yeah, we don't. make
Burritos are
down
American,
here.
and not just American, they're from San Francisco. It's a fact.
Take me back to La Cumbre.
Exactly. It's arguable that either La Cumbre or, what is it, El Toro? There's two in the Mission that claim they invented it, and I'm going to fuck it up. But it's La Cumbre is one,
Yeah.
and the other one I can't remember who it is. But there's two places that claim that, and the story I've been told forever, and maybe I even Googled it, it was done for like workers, like construction workers, because like having tacos or like a plate or whatever you were eating for lunch was a lot of
Too
work.
much, yeah.
You could take a burrito with you and like eat it while you were doing your shit, and you know, Chipotle's fucking whole magical empire was born. But yeah, that's a fact. But it would be things like that, like okay, this is another good one. So nobody really knows that I'm a big fan of Ben Davis, as are most people that live in the Bay Area.
Word.
I'm a close friend, a personal friend of the Davis family. My friend Mike Davis is Ben Davis's grandson. And Ben Davis's grandfather was this guy named Jacob Davis, who was a tailor here in the city.
JD.
Who was a tailor here in the city during the gold rush. And he's actually the guy who Levi Strauss hired to make the first pair of like riveted pants. Levi Strauss wasn't a clothing dude. He was just a mercantile guy who sold picks and axes and supplies to people going to the gold country to get rich. And he had all this tent fabric. The pants that they were selling were cheap and they were falling apart. And he had all this burly canvas. And he was trying to figure out a way to make like more heavy duty pants, but they couldn't get them sewn together so they'd stay. And it was Jacob Davis, Ben Davis's grandfather, who created the riveted pant and sold the patent to Levi's for like nothing. So Levi Strauss goes on to become the biggest, most famous, whatever jeans company in the world.
And JD didn't
But without the Ben Davis family, there would be no Levi Strauss. And so not only is Ben Davis like a local thing, but it's also quite possibly to be considered the most important brand in the history of pants. I mean, and I'm a huge fan and have been since the month I moved here. Back in the 90s, you could get them in every single thrift store in the city for like nothing. And
Levi's
they
or
were
Ben Davis?
Ben Davis, and they were
Yeah.
already broken in. They were really good for skating. And then as I got older, my appreciation kind of grew just about the history of the brand and learning that story. And then I became really close friends with Mike Davis, and their family will give me like raw material and labels and buttons
tight.
so I can make all my own shit.
Tight.
But yeah, great company and it's still a family-owned thing. Like, you know, the number of family-owned businesses that export something from San Francisco right now that isn't an app. It's like Deluxe, Ben Davis. You know what I mean? Like, there's a short list of shit that's still made here, like physically made.
Oh, Ben Davis is still made. Or I mean, around
the
here
company's
somewhere.
still here. It's
The
still
company's
run by the
here,
original
yeah.
family. They
For
still
sure.
get some of the stuff, coveralls and the aprons and like the actual like factory shit is made here in the
Word.
city. But the pants are no longer made in the city, and neither are the shirts. They've had to farm that out. But the fabrics are all still made in the U.S.
Tight.
It's as U.S. and California manufacturers as they can afford to. But you know, unlike in 30,
Damn, so but Jacob Davis didn't get. He just gave him the patent.
he sold it to him. But
sold
from
it
what
to
I
him.
heard, he got nothing for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, his family obviously stayed in the garment business and stayed in tailoring, and then
That's
his
also
grandson
just-
wound up starting this
That's a
workwear
common
business.
thread for like the Bay Area in general. A lot of things come from out of here, whether it be something like that help push things like far beyond what they could have imagined or anything, but they don't really get the credit for it, or not really looking for the credit for it either. It's just like,
I mean, think about it in terms of like tech, right? Like all the things right now that the whole world is using to talk shit about San Francisco was all invented here. Every app, your stupid phone, and everything in between was all developed within an hour of where we're sitting right now.
Straight up.
And even though I think, you know, the average person probably knows Apple's from here and Google, Twitter, Facebook, like every single app that you use, more or less,
Yep.
either started here or is still from here. But like then they don't back the lens up even further. Like, bro, Atari is from the Bay Area. Like the television was invented walking distance from here by some dude named something Farnsworth or something like that. But over on the other side of Telegraph Hill, there's a plaque on the sidewalk. This dude invented the television like, half a mile from here.
Wow.
And died penniless because no one knew how to fucking use it. He was so far ahead of the curve.
That's the common thread too. Huey P. Newton died in the streets of Oakland, and he fought so hard for liberated people, and he died in the system's hands, however it happened, Yeah. And it's just like a common thread for Bay Area folks where it's like fight so hard to push whatever it is. It's like,
and shit that changes the whole world.
Exactly. Brilliant ideas. And
dude still died penniless, and the television probably didn't become a big thing in every American home for decades afterwards. But
crazy.
It is one of those funny things that when people point at the city, or even people that live here, that are like, fuck tech fucking, it's like, well,
were you this hyped on San Francisco before you came out here?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up reading Thrasher and watching skateboard videos and Tommy Guerrero and all the views of this city and the way Jake wrote about it and that made me want to move here. What my dream in high school was to draw skateboard graphics, and you can't do that in upstate New York, really. You can now, but you certainly couldn't in the mid '90s.
So you started your art when you were just a little kid in art classes or something, or
it was the only thing I was good at in school. It wasn't. There was no mystery as to what I was going to do when I grew up. It would be some kind of art related job because I didn't really excel at anything else. And in art class, even from the time I was really little, I was just really, really good at it. I think
it's your style. Can you pull out a drawing from the 5th grade that would have some similarities?
Some of it, yeah. I used to draw a lot of animals and vehicles, which is something I still do at this age. And I assume some of that's got to either be from cartoons or children's books or whatever I was looking at then. But even Schmitty and I have known each other for 20 years. Even the way I drew when I met him compared to how I draw now is not the same. And a lot of it, you might not even be able to tell I did it because I was getting a lot better at that age. But yeah, that's kind of why I came out here. I wanted to go to art school and then eventually get a job working in the skateboard industry drawing graphics. And back then, you were either going to come here or go to LA. The San Francisco Art Institute, which is the oldest art school on the West Coast, was just down the street, was where I wanted to go. Barry McGee went there, and they had put him on the cover of the catalog.
When you were still in New York and you seen this?
Yeah, and I knew who he was because of Slap. He had done a Slap magazine cover. And I saw the catalog for that school, and I was like, I'm going there.
Sick.
And
so skateboarding, really, those wheels, really.
That's 100% of why I came. And my family knew. I was sponsored in high school, but I wasn't good enough to be pro or anything. But good enough that I wanted to come out here and fuck with it while I still had knees to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't, regardless of the career that I got out of it or however long I've been able to stay here, it'll be 30 years in August. Man, those are the best times I've had was when I moved out here and was still skateboarding on a daily basis. And then, got out of school and got a job working in the skateboard industry within a few months. Granted, it wasn't doing graphics. I was working in the print shop, but it was close enough to what I always wanted to do. So it was
was SFAI party style? Because there's a couple of homegirls I know who moved out here. They were into graffiti. They started going to SFAI, and they were hyped on it. But then eventually they were just kind of whatever. They're really hyped on it. But I feel like there were some years where SFAI was super tight as I was growing up. But then I kind of really haven't heard too much of that recently, but back in
it went out of business last year. That's the worst fate.
SFAI is done?
Yeah.
That's why I'm it sounds like SFAI ain't been doing too high. Even in business
Diego Rivera taught there, Ansel Adams built the photo, fucking Picasso taught there for a hot minute.
SFAI?
Fuck yeah, and the list of people that graduated from there is mental. It is considered to be one of the most...
How do you drop the ball on an institution
the recipe
like that?
changed, man. Kids don't need to go to fucking art school anymore. That shit's over. You know how much money I took out student loans to move here. I was paying them back while I was working in the skateboard industry, desperately thinking if I didn't pay them back, my life would be ruined.
Yeah.
But a lot of that was I was proud that I actually took out the loans, came out here, went to school, and then got this job that, when I got that job, there probably had been less than 100 people that had ever drawn skateboard graphics for a living. It wasn't a career. It was barely even a job.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that I borrowed all that money, I went to that school, I somehow got out and somehow got that job, I felt kind of like I owed to pay the fucking loans back. And on the same level, when you're were you always that hyped on San Francisco, to take it all the way back, part of that is like a debt of gratitude thing. I didn't expect this to work out. I was working in restaurants in New York, and I just kind of thought, I'll go till the student loans are burned up. I'll get the degree. if I'm able to get a job, cool. And if not, I'll go back to working in restaurants.
Respect, bro. Respect.
And like pay the loans back. But I got out of school and I went to Deluxe and showed them my stuff and tried to get a job, and I was not good enough. And I went to Think and tried to get a job, and I was not good enough. But my degree, like I studied printmaking and I had a printer's background, and like worked in a wallpaper factory in the Mission in the 90s, like drawing and printing wallpaper. So I had like, my old man, when I was real young, was like, whatever the fuck you go to art school for, just be sure it has a job. Like, don't just go to be a painter. He's like, go and do something that has some kind of practical industrial application.
So your designs on the wallpaper was like, you was coming with the designs and then people would be like, oh, I want that.
No, we were, this company called Winfield Wallpaper was on Harrison and 23rd. There's like a big condo there now, but back in the 90s, I think historically, like 30s, 40s, 50s, they had made like real expensive, like world famous wallpaper. By the time I worked there in the 90s, our factory basically would produce replacements. So say you had a casino that had a fire and we had to replace like one wall of a room that had already aged. They'd give us a piece of it and I'd have to draw the repeat from that piece so that we could make a whole, roll of it.
Yeah,
and then we'd have to print all these finishes over it. So like if it was in a casino, we had to print like the cigarette smoke finish over it so it looked like people had been smoking in that room. Basically, our job was to match fucked up old wallpaper.
That's a trip.
But yeah, I think like just, working in printing was smart because I wasn't good enough right out of art school to just go get a job drawing graphics.
Yeah.
I was good enough to run a print shop, and one of my homies that, like we were saying about SFAI and like was it, they always say like the friends you make when you're in college, if you go to like an Ivy League school, like those are the guys that open the doors for you when you go out to become like working at his dad's law firm or whatever. I was skateboarding more than I was going to school, which at the time I felt terrible about. Because I'm like, I took out all these loans, I moved all the way out here, and instead of like going to parties with kids from school or like going to events at my school, I was just skating all the time. And so all the friends I made were just dudes I skated with, which actually turned out to be smart as fuck, because when I got out of school, this dude Dustin that lived down the block from me when I was in college that I skated with all the time, he had been working in the print shop that Deluxe and Thrasher own. Okay. And his boss just left, and they left the whole company, this like 24-year-old dude with like 40 employees and 2 shifts, it was like a big deal. And so he was like, he's like, I got you a job, but it's gnarly. And so I went and interviewed with Fausto and Eric, rest in peace to both those dudes. And they gave me this job that even though it wasn't drawing graphics, it put me in the print shop, like studying the masters. I mean, we were printing for like Todd Francis and Mike Giant, all these dudes. Wait,
so what was the print shop? It was
called Print Time. It was on Yosemite.
And that's where they used to print the mag and shit?
No, not the magazine. I don't know. That's printed industrially somewhere. This is like printed all the t-shirts, stickers, and back then, decks. Like decks were still printed like in Bayview.
For sure.
And my job and my 2 friends, Dustin and Dwayne, our job was to monitor everything, like every single t-shirt, every single sticker, every single...
Make sure that the quality control, all the shit.
The colors were correct to the way the designers had designed it, that the prints were lining up, all the separations. This is back when separations...
How much extra shirts would you, especially back then, before you even knew you would be creating hella stuff and all this, but like, would you be stoked on like getting the misprints and like shit like that and like hooking up the homies and shit? Yeah.
And they were, all those companies we worked for were wicked generous. Like most of the people working for those companies back then weren't getting paid a lot of money. We were all doing that because it was something we really loved, and like we were geeked on contributing to the sport that made us who we were or whatever. And the guys that owned the companies were wicked generous with like product and defects and in turn letting me make my own shit. Like, they were cool with me staying there after work and letting me like make my own shirts and make stickers for my friends and my homies and like my little gang.
Was Silly Pink Bunny starting?
Oh, that was before. I already had that. Like I started that in high school.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. It started.
You started it solo?
I started it with a good friend of mine, my friend Mark Alkel, who lives in Chile now. But we did it in high school.
Oh yeah, because he wasn't at the.
He was.
He was there?
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
He doesn't usually come.
Okay.
But he came last year.
Yeah. Nah, dude, that, like we were saying before we even got further this far, that's how we met officially, because you had me come play at the Silly Pink Bunnies Beaster Sunday at Zeitgeist.
Which I think I told you was a big deal for me personally, because that's the only kind of music I've ever really listened to.
I mean, when I walked in, you was listening to
I was born like 2 hours north of New York City 50 years ago. Guess what I grew up right directly next to? I mean, like, and it's not to say I didn't listen to other kinds of music, but most of it's like my friends' bands or shit I saw in a skate video. But primarily, like, that's always been my chosen favorite form of art. Outside of art, like rap music is something that like means almost more to me than like what I'm doing. I'm really, really into it. And so at the convention, it's always like everybody else's bands. Hightower is the band that's played most of our conventions. They were sort of the band of our gang for a long time.
Dude,
and so when Jake planned
me.
the one at Zeitgeist, he got you to play just, I think, out of like, he did it because he knows I usually go to those things and the music's not necessarily, I mean, I love Hightower. Most of these guys love those dudes, and I've been friends with them for fucking 25 years. But this year was especially nice for me because Tommy Guerrero played on Saturday night.
Yep.
And he's like one of my favorites. And then you played, so there was actually some hip hop at the convention, which never happens. So yeah, I appreciate that a lot.
Doing a residency there, like a couple months later, because they're like, "Oh, we really loved it. We want you to come back." And I was like, "Well, if I come back, I need to be doing at least 3-4 shows, you know?" And they were like, "All right, cool." And I was like, "So I'm gonna set up this residency or whatever." So it was very fruitful. Is that a way? Well, you saying Jake hooked it up and stuff like that, but is there other ways that you? Because I seen you did something with Benny, and like you kind of just like popped it out and stuff. Is there ways that you feel like you give back to hip hop through like art? Because it seems like you like to like be generous with your art, like, you know, and like sometimes like trade for stuff, and it's not all just like give me, I need money for this or whatever, you know. It seems like you like to just, oh, you need this that'll brighten the situation here, cool, let me get a couple plates.
And sometimes it's just like, I have had a lot of opportunity in hip hop and like working with different record labels over the years. I did a t-shirt and a poster for dudes as big as Snoop, and then I've done a lot of art for like A$AP Rock and a lot more indie rap guys, Atmosphere. I've done some stuff with Action Bronson. Like Benny was just like, I'm just a fan. Like my family's from that part of New York. My mother was born in Buffalo, and we were talking earlier, like from the time all those Griselda dudes came out, I was always like, wait, what? You know, like not since Rick James is anything in the chicken wing, is anything that sick come out of Buffalo. And he started following me, I followed it, you know, we started writing back and forth, and I just drew that just as a donation to the fucking cause, just so I'm such a fan of what he's doing. So you're right, like some of it is like a paycheck. Yeah. I still work with Rhyme Sayers from Minneapolis quite regularly on like tour posters and different ins and outs for their artists. But yeah, I'm also, you know, I'm gonna do a t-shirt for you. And I did that one for Benny just because I wanted to contribute to his deal, and he was a fan of what I was doing. Yeah, so it's something I really like. I don't go out as often at night as I did when I was younger, but if I do, it's definitely to go to hip hop shows. It's like the one thing I still, and I have a loyal crew of dudes that I've been going to shows with for like fucking 25 years. Sick. And we're always the oldest dudes there. Sick.
How did you link A$AP Rock?
I was without question probably his biggest fan in like 2005, 6, 7. He married a girl from San Francisco, or at least she was living here in like, I think 2006. And he moved here, and somebody, a friend of hers actually, was like, yo, I know this dude who is legitimately your biggest fan. Mm-hmm. And then he looked at my art, and then he hit me up and was like, oh, I have this album coming out. And I did an album cover and a couple music videos, but mostly like he didn't know anybody here. And he, you know, he grew up skating, and like we had a lot of shit in common outside of the fact that we're from the same part of New York State. He's from Long Island and I'm from upstate, but like same part of the country, same age more or less, grew up skateboarding, had a lot of interests in common. And I was a fucking humongous fan, you know, like huge. And I think he got me by default. He didn't know anybody else here. And so I hung out with him constantly. And it was like, you know, they say it's like dangerous to become friends with your heroes. He's an exception to that. We became really close friends and still are. And through him, I got a lot of other opportunities in hip hop just because my art kind of became affiliated with him for a while. Yeah, so were you doing like his poster, cover art, just t-shirts, just everything, just lacing it up? Yep. Tight. And did it start off as like kind of intern style, or just no, it was a paying gig right out of the gate. Okay. He hired me, and we worked on a bunch of shit together. We worked on a cartoon for Disney that we pitched that didn't actually go, but like we worked on it for like a year. We've done a bunch of cool, and I still work with him. Like we made some shit last year. But yeah, that stuff for me is so fucking satisfying because like growing up, like wanting to do skateboard graphics, that's a realistic goal. If I grew up wanting to do hip hop covers, and get the fuck out of here. Like that just wasn't something anybody from where I grew up was ever gonna wind up doing. And to have that come out because I was doing all this other shit, it's just like part of the reason I like doing a lot of shit for free and giving back to stuff is I just feel lucky as fuck. You know, just as I'm telling you that story, like how'd I get to work with A$AP? That's fucking random. Somebody just knew I was a huge fan, and like, I don't know. I think in life you can't ignore those kind of things, and like you gotta be real grateful for what you're doing when you're doing something like this. Like I'm I never in a million years thought this would be my life, that I'd be still living here 30 years later, sitting on a couch talking to you about it. Like,
word.
And I think if you kind of just pretend you deserve all that and don't give back to things as often as you can afford to, it's a great way to lose everything you've built, I think. You know?
How do you find the medium of like knowing what your worth and all that, and like accepting jobs or not taking jobs? Like what is like the main deciding factor kind of for
just how much I want to do it. Yeah. I have built a life here that, even though, you know, my apartment, I live in like a very modest place in the middle of this incredible neighborhood. My landlord and his family don't charge me a lot of rent and never raise it. Like I'm protected. I trade with all these restaurants so I don't have to pay to eat.
Nice.
I've made sure I could probably grow old and die here without too much money. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I don't have a family or any kids or anybody depending on me. So that really takes a lot of pressure off how I would make decisions about what jobs I take and what jobs I don't. The main thing is like, how fun is that going to be? Because like, honestly, I'm not going to starve. I do okay. And so I think there's been different times in my life where I took jobs I wished I hadn't, or I did something and I didn't like how it came out, but I did it because I had to do it. Like I needed the money. And even still, to this day, I take jobs sometimes where the paycheck's just so big, I can't say no, but the project doesn't come out the way I want it, or it has this corporation involved or something that makes me a little uneasy. But at the end of the day, the main decision is how fun is that going to be? And I've even taken some giant corporate gigs primarily because it was going to be fun. Like not even just like, oh, this is going to be a great paycheck. No, this shit is fun. You know, like we were talking earlier, I've been doing a lot of work with the Giants. And like, you know, I'm not the hugest baseball fan in the world. I'm just like a fan of getting that kind of gig and having that kind of opportunity and working with those kind of people. And most importantly, outside of whether or not it's fun, it's like who's the audience I'm communicating with is a huge, huge part of it. Like the Art Institute down the street preached like fine art. You know, it was like one of the only fine arts institutions on the West Coast. And that means like, you know, art for art's sake. And like your best case scenario is you make really expensive art that really wealthy people can afford. And you're having that conversation with them. You know what I mean? Like I spend all my time making this one thing and one really rich dude gets to take it and hang it up. And part of the reason I was drawn to printmaking is because like, that's art for everybody. You know what I mean? Like I draw one thing, I make 100 of them. Now instead of one person being able to have the conversation with me because they can afford it, now me and 100 people are communicating. And to me, that's more like that's the kind of art I'm like proud of. You know, like I don't want to just make art for people that can afford it. Like, and a lot of these larger entities like the Giants, for example, well, that puts me on a platform where those people didn't grow up skateboarding. They don't know my art from rap music. They know my art. They're like, oh yeah, I saw that mural you had at the baseball stadium.
And these are like
that's a fan base of people that might not even been turned on to this kind of art.
Word.
And I've had a lot of people from baseball, like because of that mural, hit me up and be like, yo, I love your stuff. I had no idea. I seen the t-shirts. I didn't realize that was, and it, to me, that's what it is. I'm communicating with people. I'm trying to make stuff that makes people psyched. And so if I'm just doing that with the same 12 rich people that can afford to be, that sucks. That's what that school like preached to me. Mm-hmm. But I think going to work in skateboarding, coming from that background, I wanted to make art that just could communicate with a larger audience and isn't so elitist. You know, like skateboards were $50 for what, 30 years? You know?
Yeah, straight up.
That's the medium I kind of wanted to have my stuff on, and then it just kind of went from there.
What was the, so you were working at those print stations, but did you ever start doing graphics for Think and stuff like that?
Yeah, those guys, all the guys, like dudes at Thrasher let me do a fucking t-shirt, and I'd been out of college for like 6 months or something. Yeah. And they, you know, they just threw it in the back of the mag, but like, you know how big a deal that was for me at that age?
Yeah.
And I also was working in the print shop, so I got to make sure they printed good. And like little things like that, like Juxtapose let me sneak a little poster in the back of the magazine. And then Think had me do a couple graphics and a couple more and a couple more. Mm-hmm. And then one of the kids in the art department at that time had to move abruptly, and they just kind of pulled me out of the print shop and put me in the art department, which at that time was kind of bold because I didn't have any computer skills at all. I didn't even know how to use any graphics programs. I didn't take any of that. I wasn't interested in it. I was trying to do everything analog, and in all the printmaking I had done, everything was still done by hand. You know, like we shot the line drawings on a stat camera and cut all the separations by hand. But at the time I left the print shop to go into the art department, that whole recipe had changed. Computers had begun the way of the world, and skateboarding was no exception. So the way graphics were getting created, even if dudes were drawing them by hand, they were still scanning them in, piecing together, outputting films. Films were being printed, and those are the things we'd use to print your t-shirts and your skateboards. Yeah. So I immediately got into that art department way in over my head and had to like learn how to use the computer real fast, and I sucked. And a lot of that early stuff is really bad. just because I was in that art department doing exactly my teenage dream job.
Word.
Unfortunately, the way I had learned how to do it had just become obsolete, and the way they were doing it was something I didn't know how to do.
That's real interesting to know, though, because it's like it's almost like if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready, and you were just ready just because.
Oh man, I was gasping for that gig.
Fired up, you know.
They knew too, like the guys that I worked for, Fausto and Eric, and even Dustin and the guys in the print shop. Like everybody knew that wasn't what. I mean, I was into printing, and it was what my background was in. But I was, when you were like, were you printing little things, man, I was giving them, anytime somebody was like, oh, Stereo's thinking about a rebrand, I did like 40 stereo graphic ideas and, like anything I could possibly do to do more graphics and less printing. So by the time that dude just kind of left abruptly and Think needed another dude, it just was perfect timing. And like I said, 5 years before that, I had gone in there with my portfolio, like right out of art school, and those guys were like, oh, you're just not good enough. Word. But 5 years in the print shop, basically it was like going to grad school.
Sure,
I just like studied dudes like Todd Francis and Christian Cooper and Mike Giant and Morning Breath and all these guys that were like in those art departments at that time, just looking at their line quality and how they draw and what materials they use and how they color separate and what colors they choose. So my skill set went from being like not bad when I got out of school, but after 5 years of basically grad school running Thrasher's print shop, and I got really good really fast. And then from there it was like, all right. And then they moved me into an art department, and I worked in that art department at Think for a handful of years, and that was the last full-time job I ever had.
Damn.
Like between the amount of exposure I got through Think, Slap magazine was really popular at the time, and big respect to Mark Whiteley and Joe and everybody at Slap. They gave me like a little 2-page cartoon in Slap. And that was the first time my art like made it around the world with my name on it, And I remember Mark Whiteley being like, yo, dude, you need an email address. Like people are contacting them. I was like, what's an email address? This is how long ago that was. And so like those guys, that whole industry, like Thrasher, Slap, Think, High Speed, like all those people are kind of who put me on and like got my name to go out all over the world. And so by the time I stopped working at Think, I was getting like, little side jobs drawing snowboard graphics or like have an art show in fucking Germany or whatever. Like I was starting to get it was going. And I was making enough money that I knew I could quit my job. Mm-hmm. And so I quit, and I'd been self-employed for about 6 months. And then I fucking broke my ankle bad, skating in the Autumn Bowl in New York. Damn. I fucking spun my foot 180 degrees and broke all the bones in my lower leg. Like metal plates and multiple surgeries and shit. But I'd only been self-employed for like 6 months.
So you wasn't stacked up like that?
No, I didn't have any money saved, and I didn't have insurance or anything. And I almost went under. Like it was almost over before it started. Yeah. And I couldn't go back. The guys at Think weren't taking me back. And like it was kind of sink or swim at that point. And I figured out how to make it go. But it was just really funny that like skateboarding was what got me all the way up to like being self-employed. Yeah. And then almost skateboarding like broke my ankle. Almost took it all away. But that's the beauty of it, you know what I mean?
Because it don't owe you shit. But
it doesn't owe you shit. Yeah. And again, one more reason that I'm so loyal and grateful to all those companies. Like it doesn't owe you shit, but you owe shit to the people that kick the doors wide open.
Straight up.
And I'm super grateful to all the people that worked for those companies back then.
Hell yeah. What was the first shoe that you did? I mean, I think I know it was the Nike shoe.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Right at the kind of the dawn of Nike SB. I think I was the second artist they worked with after Pusshead. It was pretty early. I was either second or third. And, this is right around
Pusshead Nike sounds sick as fuck.
Look him up. He's a beast. He's a hero.
Damn.
He's the man.
Yeah, for real.
But that's a hard act to follow, right?
Did you ever meet Pusshead? Yeah, you kick it with him and shit?
Yeah, I did this when I was doing Slap. I had a thing called The Big Stupid that was like this cartoon in Slap. And towards the end of it, I was getting tricky where I'd get other artists that were, people I looked up to do it with me. Like I draw half, they draw half. Yeah. His is the sickest. No offense to any of the other dudes I did it with. He's just a fucking savage animal with a pen. Shout out to Pusshead. Straight up. He's a fucking man.
Straight up.
And again, one of those dudes that like kind of paved the road I drove down in the 90s, you know what I mean? Like I said, there wasn't that many people that did that job back then, you know what I mean? It just wasn't like a common gig. Word. It was such a narrow field, but he was one of those dudes that I always
just like Smitty's talking about the first dude filming
surf videos,
yeah. It was like, damn, that happened while we were here, you know what I mean?
You ever watch that documentary on Warren Miller, like the ski film guy? That shit is fascinating.
Nuts, huh?
And kind of a similar story to those surf videos. Like, it's just, right place, right time, being actually passionate about something, like it does go a long way.
So the Nike, they just seen you lit up and was just early.
It just kind of all happened at once. I think I was doing a lot of board graphics, no longer for Think, but for other brands. That was kind of getting out there. Mm-hmm. I was doing a lot of stuff with Aesop Rock. My art shows were starting to sell better and be in bigger places and bigger cities.
Yeah.
And I think Nike SB was just brand new. Like, they hadn't even put out that many. It was definitely no lines out in front of the stores yet. You know what I mean? And I think the artist collaboration thing with them was also very young. Like I said, I was either second or third.
Word.
And it's, they were incredible. It was incredible. Like, so much so that, back then, there was still a little bit of tension about Nike entering the sport. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of companies and people individually that, and rightfully so. It was a heavy thing and changed the game completely. And, they took out the back cover of the mag and put my fucking art on it. You know what I mean? Like, it was a big, big opportunity for me. But I was also concerned that it would look like I was selling out to the fucking corporate shoe game. Because Nike SB not only wasn't big, it was still being kind of like people weren't exactly sure how they were going to receive it.
Word.
So I was a little bit worried that it would be but they were so fucking cool, dude. Like, we talked about the Silly Pink Bunnies thing.
Yeah.
The year the shoe dropped, our convention, we planned it to have in Portland because that's where Nike's at.
Word.
And they threw a private party for all 100 of us in their skate park, gave everybody a pair of shoes before they dropped and a hoodie, and catered it with free food and drinks. And we were there all day. It was like an 8-hour thing.
Just kicking it.
And I mean, my friends were just like, yo, what is your life? Like, what the fuck just happened here? You were just living on a shelf in the back of an art gallery, and now Nike just bought all the shoes and dinner? Like, where the fuck are we at? But it was really that sudden. And I think, that shoe dropped the same year as the Aesop Rock album. And I think those two things in conjunction with each other just started a trajectory that I'm probably still eating off on some level. Like, I got more work from that, and that work got me more work, and
But that's just a testimony to following your dreams. You never know where they take you. You know what I'm saying? Like, your homies that you started this crew with back just fucking around, you could never imagine that Nike would be red carpet and treatment y'all for some shit that you drawing that you I had fun doing this. You know what I mean? Not like.
Well, and it's sick too, because our gang started because when we were in high school, the local paper in our city wrote this article about gang activity in our city. And it was legitimately written to scare old people. Like, it was so far from the truth.
Word.
And they were just like, this group of kids that hangs out at this pizza place, and they're a gang. And these kids that hang out in the square are a gang. Yeah. And these kids at the skate park are a gang. And we were like, what? We're a gang?
Yeah.
This is sick. I was like, and they were like, well, if we're a gang, we're definitely the toughest gang out of all these other fucking gangs. And my one buddy was like, the Silly Pink Bunnies. Like, that's a really tough name. And that was the original slogan, was Silly Pink Bunnies. We're a mean gang.
Yeah.
It was like our original kind of thing. And then I came out here to go to school, and I didn't have any friends out here. I was trying to make my art seem like it was bigger than it really was. Like, on some kind of like early Shepherd Fairy, like Andre the Giant has a posse kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I have a fucking posse. I was like, there's 12 of us, and they're all back in New York. And I was like, I'll just pretend it's this really big thing.
Yeah.
And then, one by one, I moved out here. I made 5 or 6 friends.
Put a couple
they're 5 or 6 friends.
Yeah.
Then slowly but surely, all my friends in New York started to move out and make 5 friends and 5 friends and 5 friends until, it started in '91 with 2 dudes. And then last year was our 33rd anniversary, and there was 120 people at Bimbo's. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's just sort of I never really had a very big family, and like a real one. And was never really, I've been here for 30 years. I wasn't anywhere near my family.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
I think the Silly Pink Bunnies thing, I perpetuated it somewhat as a supplementary family, somewhat as a way to stay in touch with my friends. Yep. Somewhere on kind of a social experiment, not on Jim Jones kind of I'm going to kill all these dudes off.
But let's see how
there's something fascinating to me about corralling this army of people and the amount of community that comes along with it. And I don't know, the amount of love and respect. These dudes have found ways to relocate guys to other states, and dudes have met their wives through, this gang is like a family in the sense that the connections people have made through it, they've changed people's lives and shit.
Yeah, for real. All those dudes are hella nice. After I got off stage, they were like, what's up with the shirts? Where can we, this fools was kind of stuffing some money in my hands. Man, here's the extra $30, dude. You just fucking killed it. And I was like, I never heard of the Silly Pink Bunnies.
Yeah,
these some cool motherfuckers. And then Freddie's there. He's like, yo, yeah, man, I'm Silly Pink Bunnies too. But I'm like, all right, I know one of y'all motherfuckers.
Freddie's a higher up politician in the whole empire. But yeah, I think it's it's like any other little skate gang where you grow up. But the skate park where we grew up is the oldest skate park in New York State, and it's been there forever since the '80s. And like, to think. Like this funny little gang that's basically from there, and it's in this giant recreation field in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York. And like on one side is this huge football field, and on the other side is this huge baseball stadium. And it's like, those are where the high school teams play. It's like athletes went out of there and went on to play college sports and went on to maybe try to play professional. But I'm the only motherfucker from that rec field that ever had his own Nike. So fuck those other sports. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day,
actually working with sporting companies.
Yeah, we're just like Giants, like Michael Jordan and I had a shoe on the same company. Like I just think, like for me and like where I'm from and the sport that I was into that drove me out here, that put me in a position to work with somebody like Nike. That's all skateboarding. You know what I mean? At the end of the day. My friends and I just built this really shitty park in the 80s, and it's somehow still there. And the amount of cool shit that's come out of there, professional skate, Kenny Reed is from the area.
Y'all petitioned or whatever to get the park actually built?
Sorta. They started making it more and more illegal in the city where we lived. And at some point, somebody's parents went to city council and were like, you can't tell them they can't do it without giving them somewhere where they can. And so then they just paved like this slab of pavement, and that was it. There's like, here's pavement. You can go here in between the baseball and the football stadium. Here's your strip of pavement. And so we all just we built ramps and brought them there, and those got burned down. And the city, it just it grew from there. But it literally started out as just like a slab of pavement. But like I said, like not just me and the Silly Pink Bunnies, but like a lot of decent amateur and professional skateboarders came out from. I mean, fuck Element, Element Skateboards, one of the biggest brands in the history of the sport. Johnny Schillereff, the dude that designed that, was born in Albany, and he grew up going to that skate park. Yeah. Was a founding father of that slab, and there's a lot of shit that came from that part of New York State that nobody knows is that sort of relevant to the trajectory of the sport.
Did you ever do a graphic for Kenny?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. A couple. I just did one recently.
Kenny who?
Kenny Reed. It's
Reed.
probably the most, is the most famous professional skateboarder from that part of New York. Kenny and I grew up 20 minutes away from each other, and I've known him since he was 11 or something. He was good, really, really. He rode for Dogtown when he was a little kid, and easily one of my favorite skateboarders of all time just because of that. He was a natural from the time he was a tiny kid, and always super cool. We lived together out here for a minute when he first moved to the city, and I did some stuff for him at different periods in his career, but just recently, the skate shop in Albany where I was born had me redo his first board when he turned pro on New Deal. And his first board was drawn by Todd Francis, who's one of my heroes, kind of one of those dudes I studied in fucking grad school, and also now one of my really close friends.
Yeah, that's the
and
first
they
time I
asked
came
me to
here,
redo the board that Todd did for Kenny's first pro board. And man, I drew the living fuck out of it. I was A, trying to make Kenny happy, B, trying to do a solid for the guys that own the shop in Albany. Shout out to Season Skate Shop. Those guys are awesome. They wasn't there when I was growing up. Those guys are a lot younger than me, but it didn't used to be one of the easiest places to skateboard in the world because the weather is so fucking shitty. So the fact that shop is still in Albany and has created a real scene, and Washington Square Park has a big skate park now, but it's a cool place to grow up. You never realize how cool where you're from is until you leave. And granted, it's not that cool. I'm not going back. But I just, I'm really proud of that part of my history, and I think without being from that place, I definitely wouldn't have wound up here.
So skateboarding is when somebody asks what does skateboarding mean to me, it's I can't really put a finger on it, because it's family, community, and all that, but then learning how to build stuff, and then the photography aspect for me, I love to shoot photos and all that stuff, but then the artwork aspect of it, and if a kid and his or if a parent comes in and is talking well, what can my kid get from skateboarding or something, you can start off with this board, but then he can actually how you start working at a print shop, and then now you're meeting some of the artists that you never thought you would be around, And I do relate it to like skateboarding. I mean, to rapping too, because it was like that for me. Like when I started rapping, I was like, oh, how do we get into the room with these people? But if you just like keep doing what you're doing, you start to realize I don't even want to be in a room with that person
until
anyway.
they invite me. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this dude, I never thought I would meet him, and now we're having a drink together, and this is cool. You know, so yeah, that's pretty rad. I always attribute like skate shops to like bait shops. You know, like when you come in, like. You just know what you want to get, but you might want to try something new, you know.
I never thought about it like that, but it's true. And it's also like, you know, fishermen are going out after they visit there's no like rules, you know what I mean? Like you do it your way, your style, your choice of materials.
Hit the pond.
My grandfather fished, which would have been funnier. My mom's dad was the president of Trout Unlimited, which is this giant fishing organization in the Northeast. So I grew up around all these heavy hitter fishermen, but Fish is actually my dad's family's last name. But we always joke, like when my mom brought my dad home, my grandfather was probably like champion fisherman, just gets a son-in-law with the name of his, you know, treasured catch.
Oh shit!
But yeah, that's a good one.
What's this stuff over here? You got a home plate, some balls.
Yeah, man, this is another one of those things where I have no idea how the fuck this happened.
Yeah.
But a couple years ago, I got asked by the San Francisco Giants to do a mural inside the stadium.
Okay.
And that was fun and something I never thought I'd do. And, you know, I think growing up right next to that baseball field.
They called you and was like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Damn.
I don't really I'm not really good at I'm not a I don't reach out and
I know, that's what I'm thinking. Did they hit up somebody else or they directly?
I don't have a manager. I do all this stuff myself.
Okay,
and I don't have any employees. There's no interns.
Word.
The dudes at the Giants sent me an email. Like, will you paint a mural in the stadium? And then that's turned into kind of a longer term relationship. I'm doing a bunch of t-shirts and stuff for them this year.
Word.
Helping them with this skate day event. And
Giants
then,
doing skate day?
Yeah, they're gonna do a thing this spring where they pull out ramps and they're gonna do this big event at the stadium. There's a surprise. Anyway, I'll leave that all there. But in the meantime, I'm doing a bunch of merchandise and graphics and stuff for them. And then they pitched me this residency opportunity where I'm gonna get a studio and a little gallery inside the stadium for the summer. And I'm just gonna be in there drawing during games. And then I was like, I don't just want it to be stuff I drew while I was there and pictures of my other art. So I was like, send me some balls and some broken bats and some bases and shit that were actually used in games.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna just paint these and do something with them so that when people come in to see the exhibition, there's just some odd those were bats that were used in games that have the dudes' names on them. You know, it's a cool way for me.
That's tight.
To be able to actually physically use the implements in baseball. I never played, and it kind of because my dad and my grandfather were way into it and tried out for the Yankees, and I came from this big baseball family. Yeah. And again, back to the skate park being right next to the baseball
tried out
field.
For the Yankees?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, both my father and my grandfather both tried out for the Yankees and didn't make it because they were too slow.
Damn.
But they were that invested in it, and so I grew up my whole life just listening to everybody baseball, and then from there, I'm fucking at the skate park next to the baseball stadium where everybody's parents and all the money and all the energy's either in the football stadium or the baseball stadium. Nobody's giving a shit about us on that slab of pavement in the middle. And so I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder towards baseball. But, living here as long as I have, and especially in this neighborhood, when we started winning all those World Series years ago, and the city was in real, upheaval, there was a big conversation about tech and displacement and fucking gentrification and, people were fucking pissed off at each other.
Occupy and shit was going around.
Yeah, and just for the first time since I had moved here, San Francisco was starting to hate each other a lot. People were rooms were tense. People fucking, and you'd see baseball when we'd win, and you see all these people from all these different backgrounds, neighborhoods, ethnicities, financial, whatever. Everybody's high-fiving and hugging, and I was like, yo, you're fucking sitting here hating on professional sports because you grew up skateboarding, but if you really pay closer attention as far as a member of a major city that's winning at a time where, man, people were arguing, people here were fucking pissed off. And then baseball would come in and we'd win a bunch of World Series and everybody's hugging, and it created this social fabric, glue, it glued people back together when they were becoming unglued. And I think growing up with this weird wall around me, fuck professional sports, skateboarding is way cooler. Well, now skateboarding's in the Olympics, you nerd.
Straight up.
You got to kind of analyze these attitudes. And I've done a bunch of work for the 49ers as well. I have a whole installation inside their stadium, and
nice.
And I'm really proud of that shit because I didn't grow up playing these sports. I don't even know how to throw a baseball.
Straight up.
But I am really interested in doing things that affect the city I'm in and affect the community I'm in. And they reached out about this residency, and so I'm going to be working in there this summer. Doing drawings and paintings inside the stadium during the games, which is you couldn't even make some shit up like that. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
one of my friends was like, how do you even get those kind of jobs? I was like, that's not a job I would like ring their doorbell and be like, how about you guys just give me a place to work for the summer?
That's badass, dude.
But it's weird things like that where I'm just like, I'm just so motherfucking grateful to still be here. You know what I mean? Like the whole generation of art dudes I came up with, a lot of them have had to leave just because like this fucking place became real expensive.
Can't afford it, huh?
And it's not a great place for artists, and it is a difficult place for artists these days.
Do you attribute your attitude towards just like economic function, you know, like how you do it for yourself, how you got yourself in order and how you're willing to be more on a barter system? Do you attribute that like ideal, like this, the way just moving like that to opening space for you to get these bigger jobs and stuff like that? Like, would you advise people to kind of change the way they look at receiving money for stuff, or you know what I mean? Or?
No, yeah, it's a good question. And like, I do the barter thing for two reasons. One, it started real naturally. Like I don't reach out a lot and ask for jobs, but that guy Tony from Tony's Pizza that I was talking about, he opened a restaurant and right on my block, and I looked him up and I was like, yo, this is like a fucking multi-time world champion. This is like 12 years ago. Yeah. And so I went next door and I was like, yo, you know, paint a mural, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, I'm not, you know, I don't know if he knew he wanted to pay for it or whatever. And I was just like, I'll just trade you the mural for free pizza for life. And he was like laughing. He's like, all right, cool. His restaurant was brand new. I didn't realize he was going to go keep winning world champions. And now I think he's got like 40 restaurants around the country. Like he became a big deal. He's like the Tony Hawk of pizza. And like, you know, that's kind of how it started. Just on some, I admired the guy. I wanted to put a mural on the side of his building, and I didn't really think he was fair to ask him for money. So I was like, oh yeah. But then I saw what comes out of that, and it's like, well, now I have a relationship with this dude that's far more valuable than like the pizza. You know, like if I go there with 10 people and I need a table, I'm not waiting for 5 minutes. And like people that work there give me a hug, and like there's a sense of community that comes along with bartering that like it's a different. A lot of people are like, oh, you're dumb. Like, what if the place goes out of business? You should have just got paid for. Like, nah, man. Like, I'll never be a Zuckerberg rich San Franciscan because that's just not how my job pays. But I often say like I live a richer life here than what you could pay for, because a lot of the relationships I have with the city, the motherfucking baseball team just invited me to come draw pictures in their stadium. Like, a lot of that is just having kind of a relationship with a place where I'm not trying to squeeze every nickel out of it. I'm trying to squeeze every hug out of it. You know what I mean? Like
relationships last longer than money, for sure.
And like, they're more important. So like, I've done some free food for life trades with restaurants that have gone out of business.
Yeah, but
am I sad that I did that? No. Was it a waste of my time? No. Did I believe in those people? Fuck yeah, or I wouldn't have done it. And I think when you say like for future generations, I can't say what's around the corner or what's gonna work good for the young art dudes coming behind me, but I will say the barter thing has changed my life more than what anybody ever gives it credit for, and it's not about a free slice of pizza. Like, I fucking traded with my dentist for free dentistry for hanging prints in his office. I got a free membership for life from the San Francisco Italian Athletic Club. You know what I mean? Like, I trade for a lot of funky shit. I trade the Hells Angels artwork for security. Damn, and like, they collect on my unpaid invoices. Like, bartering is a different economy. And
but would you put this? You wouldn't put barter is just barter, because I don't want to call it like that's. I don't want to say communism or some shit like that, right? Because like I don't really hear too many people even speak of bartering like as a everyday function. You know what I mean?
A lot of people are probably much smarter with their money than I am, and are much more interested in finance. I've found ways to live here so inexpensively that I'm making my choices not based on how rich I'm going to get off it. It's more like, what am I going to get out of it? And I do think, barter, I think, predates all these terms of different kind of communism.
That's what
cave dudes were like, here's 2 pears for my fucking, the head off that wild boar I just caught or whatever. I think people have been trading before they were selling shit to one another. And I think it's a form of commerce that pays you in more ways than just the physical thing you get out of it.
And granted, you are who you are, and you are able to move who you are in life based on talents and stuff like that. So the average person probably won't be able to barter as much as they would, but I think if you start to even look into it more and start to even just, because it happens for me a lot at the shop. I got a homie who works at a meat market, and like he'll come and lace it up, and he's not really looking for anything, but whenever there's a board or something that he's like, let me know when those boards come through. Like,
that's what it is.
Like we make stuff work, you know what I'm saying?
That's what it is. And the relationship that you have with that dude, where like, say you're in a jam, you got to cook for an event that's a fundraiser for whatever. And you're like, yo, we need steaks. And this dude's like, I got you. You know what I mean? Like, and those relationships to me are more about like community and relationships than finance. But like, everybody looks at that kind of. My sister always fucks with me about it because when I was younger, somebody pitched me a book. They're like, you should make a book of all these barters and like just explain. And I was gonna. And my sister's a lawyer. She's like, you're not doing that. She's like, she's like, you have to pay tax. Barter is still a form of commerce that is taxed. I don't know exactly how you'd tax the amount of pizza I ate, but like, so you'll have to edit all that out, Schmitty. You can't have none of the bartering conversation in the whole thing.
What's your biggest art show? What was the biggest? I seen one you did a fat one in like Paris back in like 2008 or some shit like that.
I've never been to Paris. Actually, I've been there, but I never had an art show there.
What is Dragos or
Oh, it was in Rome.
Rome.
Yeah, that was
in
sick.
France, but yeah. I looked it up. I've seen it, but
that was again through skateboarding. My friend Papik Rossi, who grew up in Rome, his dad owned the Harley Davidson dealership in Rome, but Papik used to come here in the 90s to film his video parts, and he was working with his book publisher and told the book publisher to hit me up, and the book publisher was like, yo, I want to bring you over to Rome, give you an apartment and a budget for a month, and then we're going to take whatever you make in the month and make a book. And I was like, what? I'd never been there before, and I had the fucking best time. They say Milan is like LA and Rome is like San Francisco, and I absolutely 100%, the city is fucking raw.
That's tight.
But I got there, and it was like, it's like one of the most visually opulent cities in the world. There's sculptures on every building, there's murals on everything, and I was like, what the fuck am I going to do in a month? And I kind of panicked, and I was like, man, I can't make a book from a city this artistically, you know what I mean? Like, nothing I could do would be like a Michelangelo in a month, you know what I mean? And then I had this idea, and my homie Papik that's from there hooked me up with like a dude who was a barber, and a dude who ran a wine bar, and a dude who made pizzas. And I'd spend a day with all these people with these basic ass jobs, not basic ass, just normal, like normal, not like the famous painter and the romantic. No, it was like dudes who just have real jobs. When I was a cab driver for the day, like,
for sure.
And then I do drawings about those jobs. So the book was more about like people's real lives in Rome, and less about like how Rome looked, which is what I thought was gonna do when I went there.
Are those books still around somewhere?
Yeah, it's called Romantic Delusions.
Yeah.
This isn't here as a prop. It literally is just sitting here. But yeah, you can check it out. But no, I wouldn't say, I think the biggest show I've ever had is the one I haven't had yet. Like I think as soon as you start looking in the rearview mirror too hard and being like, I had a big ass show in Australia.
Who shot the photos in it?
My homie Rick Marr.
So he got tapped in on it too?
Yeah, he came with me.
Fire.
He's the man. Shout out to Rick. He shot everything in the beginning of my career, and I'm really grateful to him. We just went all over the fucking world.
And where are these books still, you can find these like somewhere online and stuff still?
Yeah.
Cause I seen you had a couple other ones too, a love letter to San Francisco.
Yeah, I've got 8.
This is the first time I did actual fucking research.
Thanks, dude. We could have just bullshitted about nothing. I was fine with that.
But I was like, this dude's... gotta holler.
Yeah, I've got 8 books. That love letter to San Francisco book was this thing I did. It's called Oh Glorious City, and it was this thing I did at City Hall, where the Arts Commission hired me to draw 100 drawings in 100 days about City Hall to celebrate City Hall's 100th birthday.
That's what's up.
Well, it sounds cool on paper, but working 100 days in a row, no one does. I mean, you do, because the shop's open 7 days a week. So unless you're going to Jamaica, you understand that schedule. But they were like, all right, well, here's what we want. And I was like, well, that's not really fair, because no one goes to an art show and can remember what they're looking at if they look at 100 things,
Yeah.
So you're kind of just asking me to do all this work because it sounds cool. I was like, you got to find somebody to publish it. Like, that needs to be a book, or it's kind of a waste of my time. And fortunately, Chronicle Books, which is San Francisco's like biggest publisher, picked it up. And then I said, I also need an office at City Hall because I like to barter. And because fuck drawing 100 drawings about City Hall on the other side of town, that's lame. And they were like, an office, like, you have to work here for years to get. And I was like, it doesn't need to be nice. It doesn't need a window.
Yeah.
Just fucking a storage closet or like whatever. And they did. They put me in this sick ass architectural blueprint like storage room.
Sick.
And it was sick. And it was full of all these like models of the building over the years, and like endless files full of plans for the building. And it was really like ethereal, like I'm just around all the stuff that made the building, drawing things about the building, and the building's 100 years old. And like our City Hall is really important to the city because the first one, or the one previous to the one we have now, the mayor at the time was a real crook. And a lot of the dudes, like, they just embezzled a lot of the money instead of spending it on City Hall. So when the earthquake and fire hit, it just fucking it was a piece of shit. It fell down and was like, you know, an embarrassment to the city. So when they built ours, they made it this big, giant, massive celebration of architecture.
I was there today, actually, for there's having a meeting on reparations, and I guess the city of San Francisco apologized. Well, not I guess, they apologized to African American citizens of San Francisco for the atrocities of, like, the disparages and race relations across America. But they're apologizing for their, like, you know, like housing and police and all that stuff. But yeah, City Hall is a trip. I went there too when they got rid of Chief Sir, and me and my homie smoked a joint under the fucking thing.
It's a crazy place, man. It's fucking crazy.
It's a trip.
I used to go. I got to know like this, like kind of like the head maintenance dude that like runs the whole thing, and he would take me on a regular basis, like all the way up in the nipple, like up on the very top of the dome and that little thing.
Damn.
Yeah, it was sick. It's a sick place. Like it's one of those ones where and again, like I didn't know what the fuck I was gonna draw. 100 drawings of what? Like the dome. The fucking statues?
Yeah.
I drew everything. I drew the fucking dome. I mean, it's 100. I drew the fucking, like, the handrails. People get married on the steps. Like, famous people that had been in the building. I drew Fausto. I drew just stuff that was important to me.
Fausto, you know? At City Hall or just?
Fausto's wife, Gwen, who is a friend of mine and somebody I really love and appreciate, she worked there back in the day.
Oh, okay.
And she's where I had the idea to draw something about him. But I did this thing where it was, like, unofficial San Francisco mayors. Like, people that I felt deserved mayor status because they brought something from the city to the rest of the world. And those dudes brought fucking Thrasher and indie and like some real shit to the whole world that I, you know, appreciated. But it was that, like I just, you know, draw 100 drawings about a city building in 100 days. But that's what that book is basically full of. And they're not the greatest drawings of my career. Some of them are actually really bad. But if you got to draw one a day for 100 days and you don't really have any extra time to come up with ideas or whatever, it was just like, but I'm proud of it, and that residency wound up getting me, I did one at Coit Tower a few years later. There's an apartment inside Coit Tower that was the caretaker's apartment back in the day, and it kind of goes like this, like halfway up. And you know, back like when it was built, there had to be a guy to be like, hey, you kids, get out of here, kind of guy. Yeah. And I knew about it, legendarily. Like I knew that was in there somewhere, and I'd always wanted to see it. And my one homie got the contract to help them do the gift shop at the bottom of the tower. And he's like, yo, the gift shop's kind of needs a refresh. And he's like, you do some shirts or something? I was like, nah. I was like, get the people in the tower to let me have the apartment halfway up for a while to use as my studio. And I'll donate prints and t-shirts to the bookstore in exchange. Ooh. And they were like, oh. And so I had the fucking apartment
that you
inside Coit Tower for a hot minute. It was,
you were the caretaker for a little bit.
Yeah, it was fucking
sick. What's
up,
dude?
It was a good one.
To give you a key to the city at some point.
And then I think I got a day.
You got a day already.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not as good as I want a key.
Yeah, the key. Yeah. We need the key.
Note to self, London. Get that key made. But no, like I think, you know, when I said earlier, like how the fuck's this Giants things happen? It's from doing those other weird residencies. After that one in Coit Tower, I did one in the Upper Haight for San Francisco Heritage. It's like a organization here in the city that preserves like historic architecture. And there's a mansion sitting on the corner of Haight-Ashbury that's like pre-earthquake and fire, like an old early 1900s mansion. That when the dude died, he left it to this organization to become an artist residency. And so this organization hit me up to like live in this mansion and draw a bunch of shit about Haight-Ashbury, like the history of the counterculture in the Haight.
Word.
Which is not shit it's not music I ever really listened to. And like, I'm like, you know, I like drugs, but I'm not like a heavy drug dude where I know the history of the Upper Haight for shit like that. Yeah. And so that was kind of fun. Like, but it was funded by Grants for the Arts and it had a budget and it was a job. And I got the job like a year before COVID. And once COVID set in, as the date for me to start got closer, I was like, they're going to cancel this. Like, they're going to find a way to spend that money on something more valuable than putting a guy in a fucking mansion to draw pictures of Janis Joplin. And at some point, they didn't cancel it. And so, like, while the whole world was locked down, I moved from North Beach to the Haight to live in this big mansion by myself with my cat. I didn't even have a girlfriend at the time. Like, it was grim. And, like, no one would come over and hang out. It's a 4-story pre-earthquake and fire mansion, fully furnished in like all the, like he sanded down the floors and the walls to the original structure, put all furnishings in the house that looked original. Like it was like living in a fucking museum.
Straight
and
up.
I had a friend come and stay with me who photographed it, but otherwise nobody really came by. Like I just didn't have a lot of friends hang out, like didn't. And I went back after I finished it and talked to the people at SF Heritage. And I was like, one of these days, you guys owe me like a solid weekend rager in that place, you know, like, because I never got to do shit. Everything was closed. Like Haight Street was fucking sad. Everything was boarded up. Like it was like Lord of the Flies out there in the Haight. It was crazy.
Yeah, I was driving around shooting photos out here around that time. It was pretty desolate on the streets for sure.
I was living there. Remember we had that orange day? Like where the whole city just turned fucking orange?
Oh,
remember that?
Yeah, because of fires or something like that. Yeah,
I was living in that house that day, and I remember waking up and being like,
this is crazy.
This is the end of the world. I'm into it. Like, this is a cool place to die. Like
is that,
in this guy's big old house. Like, what the fuck?
That silly Pink Bunny's statue on Ashbury.
Haight. That's on Haight.
It's on Haight.
Haight and Laguna.
Yeah, Haight and Laguna. It's still there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a land grant for 75 years. It's supposed to be there.
Okay.
That's a good story.
When was that before you was living in the mansion? Or
this is way before. That's like so let's say like 2015 or 16.
Oh, okay.
They're getting ready to knock down that block. Used to be like it was like the city's first orphanage, and then it was a big university for a while, and it was a lot of different things. But by the time I moved here, it was pretty much abandoned, and they were getting ready to knock that whole block down and build condos. And the neighborhood organization had hit a bunch of us up. That was like an old school bus hopper spot where people just tagged those walls going up Haight like crazy.
Yeah.
And somebody thought it would be real genius to put a bunch of street art like going up the block, and I knew it was just waiting to get tagged, you know? And all my friends came out and did these beautiful fucking murals, and no matter how amazing they were still just getting smashed.
Especially on Haight.
And I knew it was gonna happen. Not like I'm some fucking genius, everybody knew. And so I was like, if I, they asked me to do a mural there, and I was like, I'm not a muralist primarily. Like I could paint a mural, but it's not. I don't like the temperamental nature, like the temporary nature of it. Like I like to make stuff that's gonna be around after I'm dead. And murals, they get smashed and painted over.
Immediately.
And that's cool, like I still do them. But anyway, that particular one I wasn't that juiced to do because I didn't want to get in the middle of that like street art versus tagger shit. And I had respect on both sides of it, but I was like, there's a shelf on the corner of that block. And I know it because Karma did a 50-50 grind on this weird round thing that poked out of it. It was in a Thrasher video mad long ago. And my roommate and I used to sit there all the time and eat lunch because there's like this shelf. I don't know what the fuck it was. There's just a big triangular shelf in this corner of Haight and Laguna. And when they offered me the chance to paint the mural, I was like, I want the shelf. Like, I want the corner. And they were like, why? And I was like, just cuz. And this dude I grew up skating with in New York was living in LA, working in like film and television, doing large scale sculpture. And he sent me a picture of a giant Skittle, like a 50-foot tall Skittle man that he made, and it was nuts. And I was like, whoa. He's like, yo, if you ever want to sculpt something, like, he's like, I just learned how to do this for real cheap. And so I went down to LA, and we fucking went to Home Depot, bought all these supplies, built a box out of wood, filled it with foam, threw a bunch of metal in it so it'd be heavy, took the walls off, carved the foam into this bunny, and then fiberglassed over top of it. And it was janky, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a professional statue, but it was definitely a statue. And it was kind of made the same way as a surfboard, like foam inside with fiberglass outside.
Yeah.
And then I spray painted it and kept all the paint in my van. So anytime if I drove by and somebody tagged it, I just climb out, double park, fix it, get back in the van and go. And, we went there, my buddies and I, we poured a big puddle of liquid nails and just like drilled down into the platform and bolted it on there. And the people from the mural project hit me, and they're like, what the fuck is that? And I was just like, click. Like, I stopped taking their calls. I stopped emailing them back. I was like, yeah, good luck getting it off. Like, it's on there. And back then they were like, oh, this is only going to be here. It'll only be like 6 months or something. And I think I spent $300 at Home Depot. Like, I put money into it and had to spray paint my car that I went through. Like, I was spending money on it. But I was like, I don't know. It was like an unofficial statue, right? Like, I just claimed, it looked like at some point in history a statue or a fountain or something had sat on that shelf. And so we just, I put a statue for the gang on the shelf.
Sick.
We had a convention coming up. I figured everybody would take a picture in front of it.
Fired up.
So then, and when it first went in there, people fucking hated it. Like, people in the neighborhood that lived by it were like, protested it and shit. Like, people contacted me directly and I'd just be like, delete.
Damn.
But people were fucking mad. And it was only supposed to be there 6 months, but you know how construction goes. It got delayed and delayed and delayed. It was there a couple years. And so by the time they were getting ready to tear that whole thing down, the neighbors had grown to love it. And like the neighborhood business association got behind it. The neighborhood supervisor, London Breed, who's now our mayor, got behind it. They put a Kickstarter online, and it is, they raised, I don't remember what it was, I think 90 grand. It's the largest publicly crowdfunded bronze statue in the state of California. And that wasn't me. They did that. Like the people in the neighborhood
You
just
started
loved
it off, it was just styrofoam.
I pushed the ball down the hill.
Yeah.
But that styrofoam one got so fucked up, dude.
Damn.
Like, he had this big, I'd stop and fix it up all the time. And at some point, I'm like, it's got a fucking massive dent. People would like shit and piss behind it. Someone lit it on fire. There were spiders living in it. And like part of where the fiberglass got burnt off, you could get into the foam. And a bunch of spiders built like forts inside the foam.
Damn.
But then there was a huge dent in the fucking head, in the top. I was like, man, what the fuck? And one day I was out there, I was about to touch it up, and this tweaker runs past me, runs up the statue, jumps off the head up onto this little wall, and then kind of disappears. And I was like, whoa, what? So I went back with a homie and we climbed up and looked down, and it was a creepy little like tweaker fuck den full of like pornos and needles and shit. And I was just like, wow,
So
this statue has got a lot of things going on. Like it's a ladder to like a creepy tweaker fuck den.
It's a house for spiders. Damn.
Yeah, but
then they bronzed it.
Well, we didn't bronze over it. We had to make a whole new one because I'm like, these people are putting their money up. Like I want it to actually look nice. So I worked with this guy, Bryn Berliner, who's like a professional sculptor, to make like a clean, like proper vert. Same thing, same design as the original.
$90
but just,
grand to fucking bronze something?
I mean, dude, it's like 12, it's 12 feet tall. It's huge. I mean, like, again, it's not like the biggest statue in town, but it's the biggest statue in town that people like openly put their own money down. And it was crowdfunded, which is a weird way to get a statue like that.
And then you got to make a big ass cast for that thing and then just fill it with bronze.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you get all that bronze from?
There's a foundry in Berkeley called Artworks Foundry that I worked with, and basically, Bryn sculpted a little one about this big. They scan it, they blow it up and print it out of foam. We sanded the foam and put a coating on it, and then they use that to make the mold, and then they pour the bronze in that mold. But not being a sculptor, it's just a cool thing to learn how to do, And like to have a statue I have that land grant where the statue stands is in my name for 75 years. So like long after I'm dead, even if the Haight Street Arts Center's not there, my statue's gonna sit there on Haight Street, and I'm gonna, like when I die, I want them to like, I don't know, put it in Golden Gate Park or something if they ever try to tear it down.
Speaking of death and shit, you had the crazy aneurysm. Do you feel like that you on borrowed time or something like that? Or like, do you feel like that was, like that could have been done for you, but now you're like, fucking,
nah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, we all go through health stuff, ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's a bummer because it kind of fucked my life up.
Word.
Like, it wasn't just health stuff. Like, it fucked up my relationship. It just fucked my life up at that time. But, you don't get to pick, and I didn't die.
Did it just randomly like...
Yeah. I was in a restaurant across the street, actually, and I couldn't remember where I was and what was going on. I kind of like nodded out. And my ex took me to the emergency room, and they did a brain scan. And the dude was like, you're good, go home, So I went home, and I got a call like 24 hours later, and they're like, the night technician's an idiot. You have a giant brain aneurysm, and we need to operate. We need to operate immediately. And I was like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, you got to go to UCSF and talk to the neurologist now, like right now. And so I went in there.
That drive over there is probably like, I'm fucking done.
Oh man, I was bummed. But like I said,
still here and you're kicking.
Yeah, like it could have been. It didn't really. I don't know. I had to quit smoking.
Yeah,
which sucked ass. I was telling you earlier. But other than that, I don't know.
You got crazy diet or something you got to do now, or anything?
I have to take medication for it. It caused epilepsy. The aneurysm. It's so big that it changed the circulation in my brain.
Word.
So I have what's called frontal lobe epilepsy, where it's not like I have seizures.
Yeah.
I just have these weird, like, I don't know. They're still called seizures, but I don't like flip out. And it's a different kind of epilepsy. I have to take medication for it, but other than that, I don't have too many problems with it.
Any big, like anything we want to shout out? Any big fucking projects coming? Again, shout out to the Giants for this big residency and all these things I'm doing with them this summer. Shout out to Kent from FTC and Hidden Champion magazine in Japan. I have a big show in Tokyo, opening like a week after my 50th birthday, 420. If you're in Tokyo, come hang out with me and Kent and the dudes from Hidden Champion. I'm pretty excited about that. I haven't been to Japan in a long time. Shout out to Upper Playground.
Fucking A right.
Right.
Yeah, celebrating over a quarter century selling t-shirts with art on it in the Lower Haight.
How did you get into working with them? Did you...
Sam Flores. Shout out to Sam. He was a cashier at Pearl on Market Street back in the day, and he used to tape up all his skateboard graphics. He did graphics for this company called Adrenaline, and I wrote Adrenaline boards. I bought them at Deluxe on Market Street, and Sam's had his art taped up on the register, and I was like, yo, you did those? And that's how I became friends with him, because he was the cashier, and he used to let us like do 2-for-1 stuff in there,
Yeah.
And at some point, he was like, oh, you should go, talk to these guys at this record store in the Lower Haight. They're making T-shirts. Because that's what Upper Playground was.
Yeah, it was a
record store. And then T-shirts started selling better than the records. And then the DJ stopped working there. And then it was just a T-shirt store. And then it was a gallery and a T-shirt store. And now it's just back to being a T-shirt store. But literally, I think this is our 27th or 28th year selling T-shirts in the Lower Haight. Come on, man. It's one of the oldest businesses in the Lower Haight at this point. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, but shout out to the dudes at Upper Playground.
Shout out to Upper Playground. Hell yeah. Shout out to Zeitgeist.
Fucking A right.
It's always sick seeing the SPD.
Long-standing relationship with the Geist. That was like, I think, second or third bar I ever went to when I turned 21.
Oh, damn.
That's where I met my ex-wife. I had a lot of some like heavy, significant personal moments at the Geist. I'm a big fan. But I don't go over there that much. I traded with them they gave me a Zeitgeist police badge, like a real badge that she ordered.
Shit.
That says free beer for life, and I can just go in there and slam it down on the counter.
Damn.
But almost on principle, I don't go there. Like just on some, like I was glad they gave it to me, but I don't want to take advantage. I did bring it out at the night of the convention.
Yeah.
And made them just bring out like just endless pictures. The dudes that worked there were like, "You're an asshole." So shout out to Zeitgeist. Sorry for being an asshole, but you gotta admit, I could go in there once a week for a beer, or I could just take it all once every 5 years in bulk.
Yeah, straight up.
So I feel like it was a fair deal.
Respect. Well, yeah, man. I'm about to gotta get some food. If I go to Golden Boy, or maybe Tony's. Is Tony's open still?
It is. Yeah.
I've never. I haven't tried it.
I would do that. Yeah.
Yeah, try Tony's.
Tony's is. Golden Boy is the classic staple, but Tony equally good, just a different category. And if you never tried it, you should try it.
Hell yeah, man. Mondays and Tuesdays in the fish tank today. We'll be back at the shop whenever.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
Appreciate you coming all the way out here too.
Have to do it again sometime.
Hope so.
All right.